Alright, so I'm just going to jump right into our foundation assignment for our core and shell project. And what I've got here is, obviously I've got my model open. I'm on the first floor plan. So what we need to do is create a new structural view for the foundation plan. Now you may have one of these in here already, but you can see in my project browser, I do not have a structural view for this level. So I'm going to go up to the View tab. It is a plan view, and it is a structural plan. So I'm going to click on that button. And level 1 is the one that I want to create a structural plan for, because that's the level of my foundation. So hit OK. And now we have a structural view, and you can see that up here in my project browser. So I'm going to rename this, all caps, foundation plan. And when it asks me to rename the corresponding level, I of course want to say no, because I want that to remain named level 1. So I'm going to hit no. Now the first thing I'm going to do is start getting this set up for my foundation plan view, or I should say a structural view. Now the structural view does show many architectural elements by default. So what I want to do is turn some of those things off. For example, the doors for a foundation plan. So I'm going to right click, hide in view by category, because I don't need any doors to show. So let's turn those off. I'm going to select my slab here. I'm going to right click on that, and that I'm going to override my graphics by category, because again, none of our slabs we want to see any of the visible the surface patterns. So the foreground, we want to uncheck the visibility of that. So we're going to hit OK on that. So that'll get rid of that hatch pattern. This particular section marker, we're going to hide that in the view. We don't want to see any architectural sections. We only want to see structural sections. So we're going to hide that by element, hide this one by element. We don't need to see the stairs, so I'm going to hide that in the view by category. And there's some curtain wall elements here, so that's a rectangular mullion. If I again hide in view by category. Now I'm going to be hiding some things, some other things in here a little later, but for now I'm going to stop there. So the foundation of this building consists mostly of a grade beam around the perimeter. And I can show you an actual section. This is a foundation section from the original building, and this is what we're going to be replicating. And you can see that this grade beam has a brick shelf at the exterior side of it at the top, and on the interior side it has a little slab ledge. Now the shape of this grade beam changes. There's 3 different shapes to it. At the window wall it's not as deep, and at openings we need to remove this brick shelf. So that grade beam is a very unique thing to this drawing. It's not going to be something that we want to reuse again in any other building information model, because it's going to be transitioning to these different shapes as we change these walls. So for these unique elements, we are going to use an InPlace family. Now the InPlace family can utilize other families to build the geometry of it. So what we're going to be doing is, if we actually look at this section, we have essentially 3 different sections, and I would call these profiles, right? We have 3 different 2-dimensional shapes for this grade beam. We are going to be extruding those 3 different shapes along the path of this exterior of our building to create that grade beam. We are going to create a custom family for those profiles. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is go to File, New, Family. So this is the first time we're creating our own family. Go to the English Imperial folder. What's listed here, these are the family templates. So it's just like the project templates, except these are set up for all the different categories of family that we want. Now a profile is a very specific family, and there's all sorts of different profiles. There's reveals, there's rails. We just want a generic profile family. So we're going to open that up, and now we're in the family editor. And what we have here is we basically just have kind of a drafting view. It's called the reference level, but it's nothing more than just a view of that section. So what we are going to do is draw that profile, that section profile. This crosshair, these two reference planes, basically create the top and the front of our profile. So this point is going to be the top and the exterior face of our profile. So what I'm going to do is simply go up to the Create menu and click on Line. And I'm going to create a profile. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to start here, and we're going to go over 1'4", and we're going to go down. And these dimensions don't really matter all that much, but we're going to go down 3'6", come back over, and we're going to come back up. Now what I'm going to do is, this is my brick ledge is going to be out here. So that brick ledge for now is going to be 6 inches. So I can draw I'm going to go up to the offset here, and I'm going to type 6 inches. And now I'm going to draw a line downwards, and let's do that 8 inches down. And then I'm going to hit escape because I don't want to have an offset anymore. I'm going to reset that to 0. And now I'm going to draw a line from there to there. Now I'm going to use my trim TR and trim to those corners. So I'm getting that profile of that brick ledge, which is 8 inches deep and 6 inches wide. Now I need to get my slab ledge in here, so I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, for this one, I'm just going to draw a line. The shortcut in Family Editor to draw a line is LI. So I'm just going to draw this little shape here. It's essentially the opposite of this. I'm going to trim that up. And honestly, right now, the sizes don't matter. What I'm going to do next is dimension this thing. So I'm going to use the dimension tool, and I'm going to dimension the width, the height, and I'm going to make my height not go to the geometry, but the actual reference plane. Then I'm going to dimension the height for this slab ledge. I'm going to dimension the depth of the slab ledge. Then I'm going to dimension the height of my brick shelf again to that face, and then this one to this face. My slab ledge is actually going to be, here, let me select that, make that 1 inch, and it's going to be 5 inches deep because our slab is 5 inches, right? So oops, I'm selecting the wrong thing. Click on that. Oops. Okay. What we're going to do now that we have this set up is save it. So we're going to hit File, Save, and I'm going to call this, I already have one in here, but I'm going to call it Concrete Grade Beam Brick and Slab Ledge. Now I'm going to put a 1 on mine because I already have one in here. Okay, so now we save that. Now you should save that to your working folder where you're saving all your files. Now, because we have a separate size of this for the two different locations, so we have this one here, the 3'6" deep one, is for the full height walls, and then we have another one that's basically the same exact thing. It's just not as tall for the window walls. So what we are going to do now is we're going to turn these dimensions into properties or parameters. Because this profile matches pretty much everything except the height matches between the two different parts of our grade beam, we really only have to make this dimension here a parameter. Now, if we wanted to use this in multiple projects, it would probably make sense to parameterize all of these. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I am only going to make this height a parameter. So what we're going to do is select that dimension, and you can see up here in my contextual ribbon that I have this label and it says none. If you click this little button here, we're going to create a parameter out of that dimension. It's going to be a family parameter, so that's correct. The name, we're simply going to call it height. It is a type parameter, and that's all we want to do. It is a dimension as well. That's automatically comes up because we selected a dimension. So we're going to hit OK. And now you're going to see this says height 3 foot 6 inches. So now we have created our own parameter. So this is or I should say type parameter. So if we wanted to create a different type of this, now we can do so because we have one parameter that we can change. So to actually see different types, we can come up to this button here and click the Family Types button. And right now there are no types. We only have a family that's called concrete, grade beam, brick, and slab ledge. And there's no subtypes, there's just one. So what we can do is we can click the New Type button, and we're going to say full height wall. And again, I'm not going to get too crazy right now about naming this, but if you were doing this for a larger firm or something, you'd have a standard for what you would name all these things. So we're going to call this full height wall. And then what we're going to do, and the height, you can see the parameter, the only parameter that we have right here is 3 foot 6. That's correct. So what we're going to do now is hit the New button. We're going to create a second type, and we're going to call it window wall. And what we're going to do now is we are going to change this to 2 foot 6 and hit apply. You can hit OK. And you can see now that the height of this profile is 2 foot 6. And if I go back to my family types, I'm going to just move this. Here, let me make this smaller so I can see the whole thing. Move this over here. And you can see that if I change this to full height wall and hit apply, it changes the type. So that's exactly what I want. Let's hit OK. And let's save this. And now let's load it into our project. So now we have those profiles loaded into this project. So the next step is to start our InPlace family. So it is a piece of structure. So we're going to go to the Structure tab. And it's actually a component. And if we click the down arrow, we're going to hit Model in Place. Now when this comes up, it's going to ask us, what is the category for your InPlace family? Now this grade beam is technically a structural foundation. So we're going to scroll down, select Structural Foundation, click OK, and we're going to call this grade beam. Now if you had multiple grade beams in your project, you could do multiple numbers. We're just going to call it grade beam. Click OK. And now we are in the menu to create an InPlace family. So this is very similar to the family editor in that because we're essentially creating a family right now. So we now have access to the 3D modeling tools. And as I said before, what we're going to do is we are going to sweep that profile along a path. So I'm going to start up here and I'm going to create a sweep. And I'm going to sketch a path. And that path is going to go from this point here. I'm going to align it to the outside face of my wall because I aligned the outside face of my profile to that origin point in my family. So I'm just going to draw this path. Now I'm going to draw this path to the next opening. So I'm drawing it door to door basically. And now what I want to do is I'm going to hit the Finish Edit mode. Now I can say, okay, what is my profile? Now you can see here that I can actually sketch a profile. I don't have to load one. But what I am going to do is load profile. So what I'm going to do now is click this down arrow, and you'll see that in my available profiles family, so these are all my loaded profiles, you'll see concrete grade beam, briquette slab ledge, window wall. That's the one I want because this wall has windows in it. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to hit the green check mark. Now what we can do is, as always, look at a 3D view, see what just happened. Now actually I'm going to close that 3D view. I'm going to go to my structural perspective that I had earlier. And now I can see that I have a grade beam along that wall. And for the purposes of drawing this foundation plan, I'm going to create, oops, sorry, I'm still in the InPlace editor. I'm going to hit Finish Model, and now I'm going to place a section marker right here, just so I can get a better look at this thing, see what I've created. So let's go to that view. I'm going to crop everything out. I just want to look at the foundation. I'm going to change this to an appropriate scale for a section, 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to change my detail level to medium. And now I can see my grade beam here. And you can see that it does align with the brick ledge, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go back to my foundation plan. Actually, I'm going to go back to my section. I'm going to select my grade beam. Now I'm going to go back to my foundation. I'm going to edit in place. So I'm going to continue building my grade beam. So I'm going to edit in place. Now, this particular piece is one extrusion, is one piece of model. I can make as many different pieces of the model that I want in this family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump across that window, or sorry, that door opening, and I'm going to create another sweep. So I'm going to click on sweep, I'm going to sketch the path, and now I'm going to go from that side of the door to this corner, and I'm going to come over here until the endpoint of my window wall, which is right there. Now it should find that point. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hit the green check mark. So I'm finished editing my path. Then again, I'm going to select the profile, window wall, green check mark, and for now I'm going to stay in my InPlace family editor, but I do want to look at this in my structural perspective and see that now I also have a grade beam around here. So now here, let's go back to the foundation plan. I'm going to create actually, sorry, I do need to finish that section of the model. It's hard to select the grade beam in that view, so I'll go to this view, hit edit in place, go to my foundation plan drawing, and now again I'm going to create another sweep, and I'm going to sketch the path from there to there to there. Now that's the remainder of my window wall, so I'm going to hit the green check mark, again select my window wall profile for my grade beam, hit the green check mark, and look at our structural perspective. Now you'll notice that this is to the wrong side. This depends on the direction that you draw the path. Now I drew the path this way. On this one I drew the path this way. So it's flipped the orientation. That's not a big problem. What we can do is we can edit sweep, and we're going to select the profile. So just hitting that select profile button will select this profile, and you can see up here in my options bar I have the option to flip. So what I'm going to do is flip it, and then I'm going to hit the green, and actually you can hit apply and you can see what that does. It doesn't seem to be working. Let me hit the green check mark. Now you can see that it's flipped it into the right orientation. So now I'm going to go back to foundation plan. I'm going to hit create, and again I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do another sweep. Now this one is unique. This one, because it took me a little while to figure this out, but because of the geometry of this corner and how the shelves and everything work, I'm going to actually trace the inside of the wall, because I through some experimentation I figured out, because of the geometry of this brick ledge, to get this to work I have to justify it to the inside of the wall. So I'm going to go to sweep, sketch path, and I'm going to trace it from this opening over to here and just up to the end of that last wall. Hit escape, hit the green check mark, and then I'm going to select for this one the full height wall profile, and then I'm going to hit the green. Actually, I'm going to go to my structural perspective and take a look at that profile now. And we can see in 3D that the brick ledge is to the outside, so we don't have to flip it this time. We can hit the green check mark and it creates that extrusion. Now, the problem is, you'll say, well, what's going on here? This isn't meeting up with it. Well, the problem is because I referenced the back side of the wall. Even though this is in the right direction, it's not referencing the right plane, I guess you could say. So what I need to do is go to foundation plan. So you can see that here. And what I want to do is figure out, what is my offset? What is the distance? And I'm going to go to thin lines for this. I'm going to measure from here to here. And it is 1 foot 1. That's the thickness of my wall. So I want to move this thing upwards 1 foot 1. So I'm going to select that extrusion, hit edit sweep, select my profile, and now you can also see that I have offsets. So I'm going to offset this thing in the X direction. I think it's the X direction. We'll see. 1 foot 1. Click apply. And that doesn't look like I got it in the right direction. Nope. So I'm guessing it's negative 1 foot 1. So let's do that again. Edit sweep. Select profile. Let's just put a negative in there. Apply. That looks correct. There we go. Now you can see in this corner the brick ledge is wrapping around properly. So this is a great example in Revit of how sometimes you just have to kind of trial and error your way through some of these settings to figure out, what exactly you need to be doing. All right, so let's go back to the foundation plan. And I'm going to create another sweep. This time I am going to use, and sketch path, I'm going to use the outside face because I don't need to do that now anymore to get these sweeps to work. Again, I'm going to go to that opening, hit the green check mark, select a profile. Again, this one's full height wall, green check mark. Now see, somehow I've flipped it. Oh, right, because I'm drawing in the opposite direction. So again, edit sweep, select profile, and we're going to flip this thing, flip, apply, green check mark. Rinse and repeat, right? So we're going to do another sweep. Now this one's just a little section here between the openings, so sketch path. Now unfortunately you can't do broken paths. I wish I could just draw the path where it exists around here and hit, create this once, but you cannot do a broken path. Each piece of the InPlace model, all of this 3D geometry has to be created in single pieces. So now I'm going to hit that, select my full height wall again. Now I know I have to flip it when I'm drawing in this direction, hit the green check mark, and there's that piece. And now I'm going to do another create, sweep, sketch path, trace it from here to there, Now this one I have to grab an inference to there. And now we're finally coming back around to where we meet our other profile. I can hit the green check mark, select that full height wall. We're going to flip it, green check mark. Now we can again look at our structural perspective and see, did we get this thing right? And it looks like we did. And let's see, I wasn't sure if I got this right. Yep, that's right on the line. So you can see that between the window wall, and if we go to a generic 3D view, you can see what's happening here is there's less structure, there's less weight in this window wall, so we don't need as heavy of a grade beam as we do where we have all this brick. Now, you're going to say, what are we going to do about these openings? So we could create another custom profile for these openings. Now we can't create another type because we would be removing that brick ledge, and that isn't going to be able to happen within the same profile family. We'd have to create another profile. But because this is a one-off thing, it doesn't really make sense to make a profile family. Plus, I'm going to use this as a teaching moment to show you that we can also do this with the sketch. So first thing I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to finish this so that I can move. Probably doesn't matter that I move this, but I'm going to move this over to an opening where I'm going to draw my first one. Go to structural perspective, select my grade beam, go back to foundation plan. And it actually looks like, you know what, I screwed up this profile. So I'm going to edit in place, select this, edit the sweep, sketch the path, grab that path, bring it over to here. Somehow I messed that up, so I've just got to fix that. Hopefully you got yours in the right spot. Actually, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is create. Oops, I'm still in my sweep. Let me get out of that sweep. Oh, there it is. I just didn't hit the green check mark. So what I'm going to do is create another sweep, sketch the path, cross that opening, hit escape, green check mark. Now I'm going to, instead of selecting a profile or choosing one in this drop down, I'm going to edit the profile. It's going to ask me a view that I can use to edit this. Now, I want to be perpendicular to my path, so I created this section for this purpose. You can also use an elevation, but the section, and you may want to create sections for the next few of these that you want to do, just temporary sections that you go and delete. Well, that's section 3 for me, so I'm going to open my view, and now we can see the grade beam beyond. So I'm basically just going to trace this thing. Oops, I screwed that up already. I don't want to trace it exactly because I don't have the brick ledge anymore. So I'll trim that to the corner. And then here again, I'll draw in the slab ledge. All right, so I got that going. So now I can hit the green check mark and hit the green check mark again. Now I can check that out in my structural perspective. And you can see now that where that opening is, we no longer have a brick ledge. So I'm going to go ahead and create the rest of the grade beam at all these openings, and I'll come back at that point. Okay, so I've gone around and I've filled in that section of the foundation at the openings with a piece of grade beam. The next thing I want to do is create the foundations for the fin walls. So I'm going to select my grade beam, edit in place, go to my foundation plan, and I'm going to create a new shape, but instead of using a sweep, this time I'm going to use an extrusion. Now the way that extrusions work is if you look at your properties, you have a start, an end, and a work plane. The work plane defaults to the current work plane, which is our level 1. And the extrusion start, for us, if we think about this wall, our brick starts at -8 inches below finished floor. So we want our foundation to start right below the brick, which is -8. And then the end for this particular one is just going to be -3'6" to get the right height of this. Now, obviously, that dimension comes from an engineer or somebody telling us how deep this foundation needs to be. So I'm going to go up to the draw command, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool. Now I'm going to go to the exterior face of my exterior wall. I've got that set perfectly. Hit the green check mark, come into my structural perspective, and I can see my fin wall foundation there. So I'm going to repeat that for the next section of fin wall. I'm going to go create extrusion. It's going to remember all my settings, rectangle, and put a foundation under that piece that was hanging out from the rest of our grade beam. Hit the green check mark, zoom in here. Now this one I'm going to do create extrusion, but I'm going to use the line tool because it's an irregular shape. It's not a rectangle, and I'm going to trace that shape here and hit the green check mark and finish the model. Go back to my structural perspective, take a look at that, and we can see my fin wall foundations. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to select this thing, and before I do the next, I'm going to isolate this. So using the glasses icon on my view control bar, and I usually use this to hide elements, but in this case I want to isolate it, which means it's going to hide everything except what I have selected. And now I'm going to edit in place, and I'm going to simply select all of these pieces, and now I'm going to set my material here. I'm going to click the material, and I'm going to, in the search bar, type CONC for concrete, find concrete cast in place. That's what I use for all of my not in place, but cast in place or site cast concrete. Hit OK. Now we can see that this all looks like it's a concrete material. The last thing I need to do to finish up this grade beam is to connect all of these disjointed pieces, and we can do that with the join geometry tool. So that's on the modify toolbar or the modify ribbon, join, and you just click on one and then click on the next, and you just kind of keep doing that, clicking from one to the next until you have this whole thing joined together as one monolithic concrete pour, because that's how it's going to be built, and that's how we want to represent it in our drawing. Once I'm done that, I can finish the model, and I can reset my temporary hide isolate, and now my grade beam is complete, and now I can move on to the next step. So the next thing I want to do is I want to edit this slab. If you remember, we previously, you may not have done this, hopefully you did. Previously we edited the edge of the slab to be the exterior face of the slab to align with the exterior face of our stud wall. Now that's not the actual position that we want it in anymore, and this happens a lot. While you're developing a design, you might place something at an initial placement using an assumption, and then later on as you detail it you say, oh, you know what, we need to move that in. So let's go back to our foundation plan, and actually I'm gonna go to this section to show you what I'm talking about. Now I've changed my my graphic display options to consistent colors so that I can see what's going on here, and you can see that I have my wall here, my slab, and my grade beam, and you can see that my slab does in fact align with the outside face of my stud, but it needs to come back to my little 1-inch slab ledge. So what we're going to do is go to my foundation plan, and the first thing that I would like to do is I might be able to, let's see here, weirdly it is showing that slab ledge. Sometimes it might not, but let's fix that now in case it doesn't. In my case it does, but let's just fix this. We're going to select the slab, right click, override graphics in view by category, so all slabs, and we're just going to make this slab. Oh, that's why, because I had had already set to 100. So you probably couldn't have seen that line. That's because your slab wasn't transparent. So now set yours to 100% transparency, and now we are going to edit the sketch, and now we're just simply going to use the align tool to align to this edge of the slab ledge. So the edge closest to the exterior of the building, and we're just going to go around the perimeter, aligning our slab edge to our slab ledge. This one's weird, it's not showing properly, but I know that's the line. It's basically moving it an inch off of the face, the interior face of the grade beam. So let's get this one down here. Finally, this one over here, I'm not quite sure. Okay, it's that line there. And we're going to hit the green check mark. If this happens, we can always say no. Go to our section, double check that what we did is correct. Yes, we now have that there. I just realized there's something else that was probably already in mine, but maybe not in yours, and that is to right-click, override graphics in view on our slab by category and turn off the surface pattern visibility. I've already done that. You may have to do that additionally to match the final deliverable. So there's a couple other things we need to do this slab. One is we need to cut out the elevator pit. So we don't want a slab in that location so that the elevator can go down. So what we're going to do, again, select it, edit sketch. This time we're just going to use the rectangle tool and trace the interior edges of my elevator room or shaft. Hit the green check mark. I'm going to go ahead and save it. No. Okay. The next piece and the last final piece we need to do this slab is we need to cut out the slab at the location of these isolated column footings. So first I want to get those isolated column footings in. So I'm going to go to structure, foundation panel isolated. Now I have mine loaded. If you don't, you're going to have to load a structural foundation footing rectangular. Now I have that in here. I'm going to edit type. Now again, I've already set this up for mine, but you're going to create a new, duplicate, rename it 30 inch by 30 inch by 12 inches, and then set your properties to be 30 inches for the width and the length, or 2'6", foundation thickness 1 foot. Hit OK, and we're going to place them at these column locations. Now you'll notice that they're orthogonal. We actually want them to be on a 45. If you press the space bar once, whoops, doesn't seem to be working. All right, that's odd. Okay, well, for some reason it's not rotating 45 degrees. You can see my dimensions are changing, but it's not rotating 45 degrees when I hit spacebar. You may find that it actually does. I'm not exactly sure what's going on right now. I have a feeling that my Revit needs to be restarted. So for me, I'm just going to place it, and then I'm going to rotate with the rotate tool. So rotate at 45 degrees. Now I'm going to create similar, and still not rotating properly, but let's get that in there, and then I'll rotate it. So I'm just going to do it the manual way. Your mileage may vary. You might have it work better than mine. Okay, so I've got those isolated footings in there, and because I've made my slab transparent, I can see them. Oh, the other thing I should have mentioned is that they do go at level 1. There's no height offset. Now I can select my slab. Now I can edit my sketch, and again I'm going to trace around those footings to remove the slab where those footings are, because basically they occupy the same space, and I just want to remove that so that doesn't happen. That way my volumes and everything for my concrete is accurate, and when I go to cut a section through here, it'll be accurate as well. So let's hit the green check mark. I'm going to say no to this, and now my slab is complete and up to date. Okay, so before I start the next step, which will be to create my elevator pit foundation, I need to clean up a few things. If we look at our final deliverable, we'll see that we don't actually see any of the walls to this, which makes sense. This is a foundation plan. We don't really want to see any of the walls. But right now, all of our walls are still right here. Even our curtain walls, we can kind of hover over those. If we select one of these, we can see that our brick on metal stud wall is here. So what we want to do is select everything. I'm just using a box. And go down to our filter tool on our status bar, check none, find the walls category, hit OK. And now all we have selected are the walls. Now all of these we want to hide, so we're going to right click and we're going to say hide in view by elements, because we are going to create some foundation walls, and if we hid by category we wouldn't be able to see those. So we specifically only want to hide these instances of walls. So hide elements. And in fact, now that we have our elevator pit, we can hide this as well. So I'm going to hide in view. Now this I'm not even sure what this is. I'm going to do that by an element because I'm not sure what category that is. I think that was a component. Now we see the brick ledges and all of that. All right, so now we need a foundation for our elevator pit. So we are going to go to Structure, Wall, and we are going to use the basic wall foundation 12-inch concrete. That should be in the template. That's exactly what we want. The location line is going to be finish face exterior. Doesn't really matter because this is kind of an interior wall. The base constraint is level 1. The top constraint is level 1. The top of this wall is going to be -1 foot, so the same depth as our footing over here. So the top is -1 foot from level 1, and the base offset, the bottom from level 1, is -8 feet. And then we're going to use the rectangle tool to just trace these walls. Now you can see that it's going to the wrong side. You hit spacebar and it flips to the other side. And now we've got those walls. While I'm at it, I'm going to drop another section here. So I'm going to drop this section marker across here. And one thing you'll notice on my final deliverable, when it comes to structural plans, I tend to show the wall sections without the tails. That way, kind of at first glance when I'm looking at a plan, if I see those markers, I'm like, oh right, this is a structural section marker. That gives me a visual clue in my drawing set. It allows me to be consistent. So this wall section, all I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little cycle button, and that's going to turn that off. On this one, I'm actually going to flip this because I'm going to have some dimensions out here later. So select a line, cycle that one. Oops, it's kind of on top of that, so cycle that until that's ahead, and then cycle this until it's off. So now I can go to this view and I can see my elevator pit. Now the rest of this, you can see that it's kind of floating here. We'll take care of that in the next assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. So we've got our elevator pit in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is create some piers. So these are going to be drilled concrete piers that are going to go under our fin walls as well as our interior column foundations. There's also 4 piers at the bottom corners of our slab, or sorry, our elevator pit foundation wall. So what I'm going to do is go to Structure, Column. Now mine are loaded, but if yours aren't loaded, load family. This is a structural column. So even though this is technically a foundation, we're going to be using a column. And we're going to go to Concrete and load Concrete round column. Now I've already got that loaded. Now if we really wanted to create the proper structural foundation, we could open this column, edit the family, and change its category to be structural foundations. In fact, why don't we do that? Let's do that right now. Let's, well, you know what? Let's do this. Let's place one. So I'm just going to place one out here. Then I'm going to select it, and I'm going to say edit family. So I have a round concrete column, and the way that I would change the category for this is to go to my family category and parameters button. And you can see that it's currently listed under structural columns. So what I could do is I can come down and select structural foundations. Now it does have an Omni class number down here. This is kind of really deep in the weeds stuff. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to keep them classified as columns under that. But what this is going to do is now, even though this acts as a column, it was created using the column template originally. You know, Revit did that. It doesn't show up under columns. It's only going to show up under structural foundations, so it's going to be categorized correctly. So let's load that into project, and I am going to overwrite the existing version and its parameter values. And it's telling me it can't change this instance, so I'm going to delete that element. That's fine. So now I can go to structure, isolated, and now you can see concrete round column is coming up inside of my foundation category. And so I'm not going to column anymore, I'm going to foundation. Now to do this properly, I should have named this, you know, concrete pier or some concrete round pier, that kind of thing. But for now, this is good enough. So now that I have that in, okay, so I'm going to select this footing, and I'm going to create, if you don't have these, I'm going to create an 18-inch and a 30-inch. So the 30-inch is the one that goes here. Height level 2 is 9 feet. Let's just get that in there for now. And I'm going to place another one. Now, because it's a column, it's not exactly working the way that a footing would. It wasn't showing me the base level and offset when I started. So now I'm going to fix that here. So the base level of this is at the bottom of this footing, which we've already created. So we know, I'm sorry, the top level of this is at the bottom of the footing. So the top level is level 1 with a top offset. Actually, it's not going to let me do this because I'm going to make a 0 height column. So let's start with the base. The base of that should be, I want to say it's minus 20. It doesn't really matter to some extent. So let's do minus 20, and then here we're going to do minus 1. Hit apply, and if we go to our 3D view, oops, that's the wrong file. Let's close that. I go to my structural perspective, and you can see the difference between these two. When I placed it, it placed it upwards. So here's my 30-inch diameter pier. So I'm going to fix this one the same way. I'm going to do, this is minus 20 feet. Actually, I know how deep it is. It is 22 feet tall. So let's see here. 22 feet tall minus 1 foot would be 23 feet. So we're going to need this to be minus 23 feet. Oh, and the top is going to be minus 1 foot for a total height of 22. Okay. Something's wrong here. Why? Oh, level 2. That should be level 1. And then we'll fix this one to be minus 23. There we go. Okay. So let's go back to our foundation plan, and now we can create the piers underneath of the fin walls. So there's one here. So I'm going to again go to structure, isolated. I'm going to change this to my 18 inch. And again, if you don't have an 18 inch, you can create it. And I'm going to do depth, unconnected. Let's do 23 feet. And I'm going to place that. Now, I'm just going to place it on the midpoint of that fin wall. If I look at my final deliverable, I can see that it's 3 foot from there. So I'm eventually going to have to dimension all this anyway, so why not throw a dimension down to the center of that to there. Actually, that can't be right. Oh, I remember, it is to the grid line. Now once we have that in place, we can say 3 feet. So that's placed correctly. Now we can look at that in the structural perspective, and of course it's incorrect. So this, it's going to be the same height as this, so we're going to do a minus 23. Actually, let me double check that. Yeah, because it's going to be, then this is going to be at the bottom of my foundation here. So the top offset, if I remember correctly, that was minus 3'6", and that is correct. So the bottom elevation of all these is going to be the same. So you're just going to place those piers under all of the fin walls as shown here. I'll come back after I get that done. Okay, so I'm going to do the piers underneath of my elevator pit foundation wall. So again, I'm going to do isolated, concrete, round, and again, I'm just, now you can see that I'm picking up the inference from the center point of those two walls, and that's exactly where it should be, right where the center of those two walls come together. That one's picking up the inference from the other one, and now I'm getting an inference from both of those, and those are all aligned. And I'm going to go to the structural perspective again just to make sure. Now the bottoms are correct, but we know that this wall was minus 8 feet. So I'm going to select all of these, and we're going to set the top level offset to be minus 8 feet. And that should move them down to the bottom of our elevator pit foundation. All right, so let's go back to our foundation plan. Now we cannot see those in this foundation plan, and that is because our view range is not looking deep enough. So if we edit our view range, so I don't have anything selected, again that brings up the properties, shows the properties of the view, hit edit on the view range, and the view depth is minus 6. I'm just going to set this to the level below. Even though there isn't a level below my current level, that should do the trick. Yes, now I can see those piers. The problem now is that my walls, so I'm going to select all 4 of these walls, right click, override graphics and view, and in this case again I'm going to do an elemental override, and I'm going to make these transparent so that I can see all those lines. Hit OK, and now I should be able to see that. Okay, so moving right along. The next thing that we are going to do is these exterior, or I should say perimeter column footings. Now these could be done a couple different ways. They could be done with an isolated footing and then another pier like we just did, so that they're 2 different things. I think if I were to actually do this building, I would probably do them that way because it would offer me some more flexibility. But just because for simplification of this particular assignment, we're actually going to use a pile cap. So we're going to go to structure, isolated, and we are going to load family, and we're going to go down again. That is a structural foundation, and we're going to do a pile cap 1 pile. We're going to load that in. I'm going to hit cancel because I already have this loaded in, and you'll see pile cap 1 pile. You'll probably have this one loaded up. So edit the type. Actually, let me load the correct one so you can see the numbers. And we're going to edit this thing so that it is a 2'6" by 2'6" by 1'10" deep pile cap. And I'm going to place one of those. Okay, now that we have this pile cap in here, I'm going to select it, go to structural perspective. And you can see that the pile is not actually the correct material. It should be concrete. And if we select this and hit edit type, we can see what's happening is that the pile type is a steel pipe. And if we click in here, we don't actually have an option for concrete. And what's going on here is we have a nested family. So the pile cap has the pile nested inside of it. So this pile is a completely separate family, which is then loaded into this family. So we need to find this family. So it's pile steel pipe 24 inches diameter. So let's cancel that. And if we come over here to our project browser, you can see the families tree, and we can expand that, come down to structural foundations, and we can see that we have a pile steel pipe. So what we're going to do is right click on that and edit that. And that's going to open that family up in Family Editor. And all we're going to do here is we are going to hit File, Save As, Family. And I'm just going to, I have a folder that I've been creating these in. You could probably just put this in your ARC 110 folder. Yeah, I'm going to call this Pile Concrete Pier for now. Let's hit Save. So that's now we've saved this as a completely different family, and all we want to do is change it. This thing is going to still act pretty much the same. We just want to change it from steel to be concrete. So what we want to do is select this. Actually, without anything selected, you can see here in this this family that some of the properties right here, some structural properties, material for model behavior is steel. Let's just change that to concrete. And again, I'm not going to mess with these omni-class numbers for now. It's going to be wrong because it says rolled steel section, but let's just ignore that for now. And the actual extrusion here, that material is, I can't change that because it's linked with the property. So it says it's associated to our structural material. So if we go into our properties, we can see that the default structural material is steel. So we can just change that, and we can type concrete. Now, the problem is concrete is not coming up because it's simply not loaded in this family. And to get that exact material the same as it is in our project it's not the easiest thing to do. Let's try this. Let's go to Manage, Transfer Project Standards, Foundation Video. That's my other project. Yours will be named differently. Check None, check Materials, hit OK, and it should bring in all of the materials. So now if we go to our properties, our family types, and go here, oops, bring up the materials. Now we should be able to type concrete, and there's concrete cast in place gray. That way we're assured that it's going to be the same exact concrete material as our model. So we're going to hit OK. So now we have a pile concrete pier. And what we're going to do, again, I'm going to save this real quick. And now I am going to load this into the project. Now I don't actually have to place it. What I'm going to do now is select this pile cap, edit type, and now I have pile concrete pier 24 inches in diameter. And now you can see that that pile is concrete. So now I have this. I'm going to go back to my foundation plan. So I'm just going to move this one, find the center. I'm going to move that pile cap to there. I'm going to go back to my structural perspective, and now you can see that pile cap here. Now what I have to do is select it, and you can see that it's supposed to be lower, so we're going to change the offset to -8 inches. Again, that's the height of our brick shelf, and now you can see that it does that. Now this 22-inch high pile cap only works at the shorter grade beam underneath the window walls. We're going to have to duplicate this and make another one with a height that matches our full height grade beam. And then we're going to place these at, again, -8 inches all around the perimeter at all of these locations. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll come back when that's done. So now we can go back to our foundation plan, and we can see that we have all those. If I go to my final deliverable, you'll notice that, if we think about looking at this, we would see the edge of the foundation wall, we would see the brick ledge, but we would not actually see the inside edge of the foundation. Now we've made ours transparent, so I like to show those as a dashed line. The problem is the way that Revit shows the edges or the profiles of these things is consistent. So if I set this to be dashed, the entire thing would be dashed, and I don't want that. I want these lines to be solid. So to make this look right, first we're going to do, one thing I'm going to do is I am going to go in here, and I don't have the whole thing done, but you can go ahead and do the rest of those. But let's do the join our footings to the grade beam, because again, these will be poured monolithically with the grade beam. So we want to show that. And if we go back to our foundation plan, now what we can do is we can address some of these lines that we see. Now the slab, for the purposes of our foundation drawing, we're not going to show this 1-inch thick edge. We're not going to show the slab edge. We're just going to show the foundation edge. So what I'm actually going to do is come in here and use my line work tool. So the line work tool, actually, let me get into it this way. Modify, it's this weird little button here. The way that works is I can set any line I want on a 3D object to be whatever style I want it to be. So let's start with the invisible lines. What that does is I can hide particular lines from view. Like, I'm not really going to see this because it's going to be conjoined with this piece of foundation. So I don't really see that line. Revit's showing me that line, but if I click on it, and sometimes you have to do this multiple times. Let's see, why isn't it working? Doesn't seem to be working. It worked there. That's not the one I actually want to hide. There we go. So what's happening is, again, this line represents the edge of the slab as well as the edge of my slab ledge. So let's click that once and click it twice. Oops, I did the whole thing. You kind of have to, with this tool, you have to be careful because sometimes it'll grab the whole thing, but you just got to kind of move it back and forth until it highlights just the line that you want. So some of these are taking 3 clicks. And again, what I'm trying to do is get rid of the slab edge. So I'm clicking on, and you can see as I move my cursor around just a little bit, it's changing up what it's selecting. So make sure you're only getting the line. And it looks like I have to click it 3 times. So this isn't the greatest or most efficient way to do this, and this is why you would wait until the end of your drawing to override these kind of graphics. Now the other thing I can do is turn thin lines off so I can start seeing this correctly. All right, so for those dashed lines, what I can do is click the line work tool, and I can say, okay, you know what, those are hidden lines. So let's click on that. Now, what I don't like about the stock hidden line is that when I do these short sections, it doesn't actually appear dashed. So I want this hidden line to be, the dash to be smaller. So what I can do is go to Manage, Additional Settings. I want additional lines, line styles. The pattern's already there. What I want is the line styles. So I'm going to expand that, and I'm going to create a new, and I'm going to call it hidden, and I'm going to call it hidden 1/16 of an inch. And it's going to be a subcategory of lines. Okay, so I've already created this, so here. And then when you go to the line pattern, you simply select the hidden 1/16. Now my line weight is going to be 1, which is relatively narrow. I'm going to hit OK. And now when I go to the line work tool, I can choose hidden 1/16. Now you can see the system ones have the carets or not, the greater than less thans around them. My custom ones do not, so I hit hidden 1/16. And now I'm going to override that one. And now that one's going to be that style. And now you can see I get a gap at these locations. So I'm tabbing into some of these to get the right line. So this one is going to be this line here and this line here. And that's how I force the lines of a 3D object to be different, using that line work tool. So again, that's modify, line work, hidden 1/16 for this face. Oops, see, it is a little finicky. You got to make sure that you're only clicking the lines that you want. I also want to do that for all of my piers because they are below, so they are technically hidden as well. And in fact, I need that to do that to all of these lines because these are underneath of the slab, so they would also be hidden. The piers are weird. You have to do it in kind of two. No, I guess you can get them all at once if you hover over the right spot. Or if you hit tab, I believe you can get them. And you're just going to go around and make sure that your line type, if you will, or your line styles match the line styles shown in the final deliverable. So I've already hidden all of my slab ledges. And again, I don't have all of my piers in there, but you will. And at that point, my final deliverable, most of my geometry should be complete and look the way it does in my final deliverable. There's only a few more things that I need to do to finish up this drawing. I need to place a couple more sections. Look at your final deliverable. I may have to update mine. Or I'm sorry, mine may be updated from what you're seeing on my screen here because I noticed a few things that I'm missing. I should have redlined it better. So I'm going to place a section here through this pile cap, and I'm going to flip that way and then turn off this tail. The other one that I'm missing in my drawing is through here. So I'm going to place that there, flip it, turn that off. The note is pretty easy. I'm going to go to annotate, and this is just text. The only problem is you're going to want to edit type, duplicate from 330 seconds Arial, and then I've already got one, that's why I got to go into here, and then just check show border. And then when you create any text, I'm not going to actually type the notes, I'm just typing some random stuff here. It puts a border around it, so you can fill that piece of text in there. I'm not going to go over placing the dimensions. You should know how to do that at this point, so just place the dimensions that are shown on this plan. And the last thing we need to do is show designate these piers. So to do that, I've created a custom tag that you can find on your Vanco Hall page and download that and load that into your project. So to do that, I've already downloaded it off of Vanco Hall here. It's and I've opened it, of course, and I'm just going to hit load into project. So we have that structural foundation tag loaded, and in the final deliverable, you'll see that the only structural foundations that we are actually tagging is all of the piers. We're not going to be tagging any of the pile caps. So I'm just going to use this pier here as a example to show you how to do this. So I'm going to go to the Annotate tab, Tag by Category, and then I'm going to hover over this pier. Now you're probably going to have to tab into it because there's a couple things that it's going to find. So tab into that pier, and it should automatically, because I've provided this, and it should be pulling the data from the actual foundation, so that this should come up with the proper thing. So this is a 30-inch diameter pier. It is 22 feet from the top to the bottom, and the top of it is at -1 from the finished floor. So you can place those in. So again, just to show that one last time, we're on the tag. Oh, here, let me stop this. So annotate, tag by category, and then you're going to find here. I'll do one of these here. Click on it, and it's, for some reason, it's placing it very far out. And these are kind of finicky depending upon where you put them. You'll get, a leader that looks like that, and they're also really hard to select for some reason. Oh, because I'm still in the place command, so that's why. So try to get these so that the leader is going to the line. And I'm not going to get too nitpicky about where these land. That doesn't look the neatest, but they're not exactly the smartest pieces of annotation. And once you get those placed in the drawing, then all you really have to do is place all of the dimensions. I'm not going to go over that in this video since you've placed dimensions before. And yeah, and again, I don't have everything showing here, but that pretty much wraps up the foundation plan.